Welcome to the Own Your Time podcast. Today we have Hadar Orkibi on the show. Hadar started his real estate career as an agent in Israel before immigrating to New Zealand in 2003. He has nearly 2 decades of real estate experience and specializes in long-distance investing. He lives in New Zealand and invests in the United States. Welcome to the show, Hadar.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
So you have a really cool background and story. I kind of want to hear about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I really started dabbling in real estate when I was a kid. I was going and help my dad. He had a few apartments, just like condos in Israel, that's where I was born and raised. And I remember as a kid, I used to just tag along with him and helping out to go and paint some units and helping him out when he goes to collect some checks. I used to go and wait in the car or go up with him and stuff like that. So I was kind of exposed to it a little bit, but was never really got granular into investing, if you like, with the financing part of things. As I grew up, I decided at some point that I will become a real estate agent, just to get to know real estate a little bit better from the inside. So I kind of thought that it's going to be a good idea to become an agent and get to know real estate. And I've done that for about, I think, a year and a half. And quickly back in Israel, I decided that there's more opportunities and money to be made on the other side of the spectrum, if you like, by being actually transactional in real estate back then, perhaps investing or flipping and getting into real estate with ownership. So I started looking into that back in Israel, and again, still helped my dad to paint some apartments and bits and pieces. And then in the early 2000, back then my girlfriend and I, now my wife, we moved to New Zealand from Israel. So when we arrived to New Zealand in the early 2000, about 2003, that was really in the height and going through the growth in the last cycle. So real estate was everywhere. It was in the media. There was a lot of kind of educational stuff coming up, and I really got attracted. I remember seeing on the TV an investor who does single families and some commercial in New Zealand talking about the opportunity of passive income and how you can really build a portfolio that will help you to live the lifestyles that you want to live, with putting less effort on the 9 to 5, if you like. And of course, like many, I kind of came across to reach out for that book and various other books that I started consuming. A lot of information, a lot of reading, a lot of education. Back then, a lot of CDs about educational CDs about real estate. I was walking back when I came to New Zealand in the early 2000. I was doing a lot of manual labor. So like today, we try to use our time as much as we can with listening to podcasts and maybe audiobooks and anything like that. So I was really educating myself while doing the manual labor. Gradually, when I felt that I had the basics knowledge to start getting into the game, I started wholesaling. So I've done a lot of wholesaling. I started with kind of no money down transaction, like assignments and selling contracts for fees, that's what a signing of a contract is. I slowly started doing double closing, which is contemporaneous settlements, closings. You basically buy the property, let's say for 100, and sell it for, if you like, 150, and you clip the balance in the middle, and you close on it on the same day. So it's really no money down transaction. And at some point, I managed to save, I would like to say, enough money to start closing on my own flips. So I basically used to buy, renovate, and sell, and buy and hold. I started with my first property was actually a house which was on a big lot, which had an upside potential to subdivide and build another 4 or 5 small townhouses on it. So I always looked for a value add. Back then, I wasn't quite clear on my strategy, which I am now. And soon after, to be frank, I was shifting my focus towards multiple income properties, because I quickly realized that I'm better off, instead of buying single houses, buying multiple income in one transaction. So I started buying small multi-families and various, then over the years, I bought some commercial real estate, like a strip mall with 4 shop and apartment on the top. And gradually, I built a reasonable portfolio in New Zealand, which grown significantly in value. And because I've been doing it for nearly 20 years, its cash flow is great. But I got to the point about 5 years ago that the market in New Zealand have appreciated so much to the point that you can compare it, for example, for like San Francisco, Boston, LA, New York, markets that they appreciated, and it's a capital growth market, but there's no yield play. The price to rent ratio just doesn't make sense. You can't buy something that will cash flow. So I decided at that time to sell one asset in New Zealand, take some capital out, and start getting myself educated about investing in the US. And as an American citizen, which I am, my mom was born in Chicago, and she's American. I'm an American citizen as well. I was able to travel to the States as much as I want, and also borrow money in the States. So gradually, I got myself educated, got my feet wet on a small deal. I think that depends on your circumstances and your ability to fund deal and your education. Sometimes it's okay to start with a 4-plex or a triplex or a smaller deal, in opposed to getting straight into 50 units or 100 units or 20 units. Because especially for me, investing out of area, I was in a situation that I wanted to experience the process and experience the teams that I built on the ground, whether it's the project management, the property management, the pricing of each particular renovations. I wanted to experience that on a smaller scale, so I know all of that and I experienced that, and then I can implement it on a larger deal once I've gone through the process.
That's such a great story, man. I really want to tap into the mindset that it took you to invest across the world, essentially from New Zealand to America, because a lot of people reach out to me and ask, do I have to invest in the market that I can drive to? Can I invest out of state? And my answer is always, yes, there is a possibility to invest out of state. I invested in Louisville from Sacramento for my first deal. But I really want you to dig into the mental barriers that are in the way of people doing that and how you overcame them.
Yeah, so I think I always say, and I teach that to our students in our mastermind as well, is that you really need to, first of all, take a step back and look at it and establish your why. Why do you actually want to invest in real estate? What is the driving force behind you that will keep you going when it's tough? Because this is a long game. It takes time to find your first deal. It takes time to get educated, to build a relationship. If you're starting with not so much money, then you need to kind of work on your relationship and start networking with the right people, so you can raise some capital to get into your next deal or your first deal if you start smaller. So your driving force is really important, and being able to have a strong why, whether it's your family, if you got kids and you want to make sure you can support them and give them the lifestyle that you want to aspire to give them, or whether you want to be able to live the lifestyle by design, which is maybe traveling overseas twice a year and being able to really not work in a 9-to-5 job and answer for a boss and just be your own boss, if you like, or whether you want to help a good cause that you have, or for example, if you are working with a charity, or you need to help some family member, or anything that really makes you move and makes you to be committed, because you really have to be committed to this. It's a lot about being persistent and staying on track. So your driving force is number one. You remember that, so you can keep moving. Then you need to really get yourself educated. You need to get yourself educated so you know exactly what you're looking for. When you start looking at a different market out of your area, you really need to be able to do research on those markets and decide that you choose the right market. The first thing for me is to work in a landlord-friendly state. I don't want to invest in New York or I don't want to invest in Oregon, or I don't want to invest in California for that matter, because these states are not landlord friendly. You have less control, you can't evict in a timely manner, and it's more leaning towards the tenants. So this is the first thing that I would look, the landlord friendly. The second thing would be, for example, you start doing your market research. So you're looking into the job growth, the population growth, how did the market perform in the last recession, if there are new businesses that moving into town, so there is a job growth opportunity. Is the state is very pro-business or not pro-business? For example, Texas, they got a lot of incentives and things which will attract new businesses to move into Texas and open shop over there. The cost of living, the median income for a family, household income, the price point for houses in that particular market. So you want to make sure that you'll have enough people who can afford. For example, we look at sub-markets and markets which minimum income is about $50,000 per household. So that's what we like to see. We like to see a medium house price of minimum around 120 to 150,000, because that means that there are some people that can afford housing, but there are also a lot of people who will be a blue-collar workforce housing tenants, and they're not necessarily going to be people who are able to get into a house. So you want to look into all those metrics and make sure that you're choosing the right market, which will also allow you to have a good price to rent ratio. One important key is that some market, the cap rates have compressed so much, especially now, when we are on 2020, going through the expansion that we had, which was over 10 years, we really experienced a good capital gain in many markets. For example, Dallas, Texas. Cap rates were there about 7 or 8 years ago, 10 years ago. You could buy deals there around 7%. In Dallas, but now you're talking in some cases 3 to 4%, which if your strategy is defined properly, you should be able to determine if you want to invest in a market with such low cap rate, or perhaps you want to look for market which still have good fundamentals, but can offer you better returns. So these are the first thing you need to do. You really need to get yourself educated so you can make an informed decision. Once you made an informed decision, that gives you the confidence to get out and start pursuing that market. The next step is, and that all of that you can do it from the comfort of your office or your home or your living room. The next step is to start networking in that market. So once you've done your research and you choose a market, you want to start networking, you want to join a community of like-minded people. For example, like we met through Jake and Gino, or people who join our Make It Happen Mastermind group. We meet on a monthly basis, on a regular basis. We jump on Zooms and through a private Facebook group, and we really communicate and help each other to answer questions and keep the motivation going. It's really, really important, because it could be pretty lonely doing real estate investing if you are doing it on your own and your immediate friends or family are not into it. It could be pretty lonely. So it's very important to have this network around you of like-minded people. And within the market, you really want to go, and once you decide on the market, you really want to go and to be committed to travel to the market regularly. If you're driving 6 hours, 5 hours, 4 hours, anything, for me, generally speaking, up to 4 or 5 hours, I will drive when I was doing it in New Zealand, kind of locally, but I was always investing out of area, also in New Zealand. But once you go over 6 hours, so my time is very precious. I fly. So flight costs you $100, $200. If you need to go there, once a month, which I recommend to go at least once a month when you start out, if you're in the US, then you need to go, you need to attend meetups, you need to be present, you need to meet with local property managers, start vetting them, making sure that you are choosing the right team to work with. You need to meet fellow investors within the local area. Maybe there's some multifamily meetings that you can attend. Meet with lenders, very important to do that early on so you can start building the track record. I always recommend to open a small bank account with 1 or 2 local community banks so you can build some track record and be a client over there. That's actually saved my latest deal. We had a deal which was very heavy lifting, and the funding in the end came to the table through a local lender that we worked with and had an established relationship for the last 3 years. So I took a credit card for $500 when I started. It was a secured credit card, and just paid $10 a month subscription for something just to start building this credit record with them. So those are very important relationships. Local investors, meetups, perhaps property management company, lenders, and brokers. Of course, we need to establish those relationships with the brokers and make a profile for them in a program like a CRM, which you could follow up with them regularly. And everything is a process that you get into, but you need to be prepared to work for it and put the effort to do that. I'm also always recommending investors to choose one market and focus on that market. You cannot put all the effort I just mentioned if you start spreading it across 2 or 3 markets and jumping from one thing to the other. Very, very, very important, because if you put that effort in one market, you will become an expert in that market. You will be present. You'll get to know all the players. You get to know the lenders. You get to know the owners. I know all of the owners in my market. Whoever owns, some owners own like 500-600 units in different communities. I know them. Some of them, I know them on a personal basis because I've been walking the market. Very, very important. It's all a mindset. You decide to do it, you make it happen. And that's how you become an expert in the market. And you want to become an expert in the market because you want to identify an opportunity when it comes across your desk. And this is the key. If you know it, you know the rents, you know how much value added will be, you know the player that will fund it. You might have other people who can partner with you within the market who are keen to get into deals but can't find deals. And I can do all of that while I'm in New Zealand. And if you're not in the US, you need to be prepared to visit your market at least 4 times a year, 3 to 4 times a year, at least. So I'm flying every 3 or 4 months, spending a good 2 or 3 weeks there, driving for dollars. Everything is an itinerary. I make schedule to meet with brokers, with lenders, with the actual fellow investors, and just working it very, very hard.
That's an amazing tip that he's given you. He's given you basically the entire process of finding a good market to invest in. But the one thing I really want to hone in on is the fact that he said you still have to go and visit that market, even if you're investing out of state or out of country. You have to at least go at the beginning and build a network there. And opening the bank account was a brilliant tip, I think. Even if it's something small, like he said, a $10 subscription a month, just building credit with a local bank and adding them to your network. And visiting 4 times a year is another really key point. So what is your favorite deal in real estate, and what are some of the lessons and successes that you had with that deal?
Okay, so like we mentioned just before we started recording in the green room, if you like, I've done hundreds of deals in New Zealand over the years, but let's get to the latest deal, which is so far the things that keeps me at the moment busy because I'm working on this deal. It's a deal that I sourced through off-market opportunities. So I'm big on marketing. I actually utilized my skills that I established when I started up as a wholesaler. I utilized it in the US with investing in multifamily. And and I teach that in our mastermind as well. I'm able to pick up apartment communities through, if you like, direct mail marketing, off-market strategies. It's totally doable. It's a little bit more challenging when you go to buy like 120, 200 units because you're dealing with more sophisticated investors, perhaps companies that it's hard to get down to the decision maker. But when you're targeting assets which are under 100 and you're targeting mom and pop owners, I think the strategy works well. It worked well for me. Every property I purchased in the US so far were off market. So I started the campaign. I identified properties which I narrowed down to the number of units that I want to focus on, which is, for example, at that time up to 60. I knew my budget, which is very important when you start up. You need to know what you're looking for. I knew my budget, and I did direct mail. And at some point, I did not receive response for that particular property, which interested me a lot. I knew it was neglected, and I could tell that it has a lot of meat on the bone just the way you drive around driving for dollar, and I was there, and I could see that there's a lot of deferred maintenance. So I did receive a lot of other response, which led me to buying various other assets over there. But in that particular deal, I received no response. So what I decided to do, my sequence of marketing is as follow. I do a letter, then I do a text message, probably about 2 weeks after I send the letter. Then I do a mail drop, a voicemail drop, and then I follow up with a cold call, like 2 days after again. So for me to do that while in New Zealand, I had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I want to get the people before they hit lunch break. So most people go to lunch like at 12 p.m. till 1 or 2. So I want to get them like 10 a.m., 10:30, 11 a.m. before they go to lunch. That's kind of what I found is the best option to get hold of people. So I made those cold calls. So I had a call with the number that I rang, which was to do with that apartment community. And I got hold of a lady who answered the phone, and I expressed to her, I got a script that I use, saying who I am. We are investing locally. We're looking to buy some more in the community. We've seen your property in so and so. Would you consider selling? Long story short, she said, I'll get my husband to ring you. He never rang me. So he never rang me, but I managed to skip trace and find his email address. So I sent him an email saying that I'm looking to kind of summarize what I just said, but in an email. And about a week or so later, I received an email from a broker. He never responded, but the broker did. So that family had a broker that was helping them to sell a portfolio that they own, which was a mixture of industrial properties, and also that apartment community wasn't on the market, but obviously I triggered the thought. And I started talking to the broker, and we were talking and in touch, and in the beginning they want 1.6 million for it, which was about 40 something per door. And I knew it's not what I knew it's worth. Maybe it's worth more than that actually, once it's stabilized and renovated and market rents are good. But with their rent, which were 400 to 44 per unit, while market rent is 595 to 625, I knew that I can't pay in that top market because they're not achieving that income. So that's my meat on the bone is my upside if I'm buying the property. So we negotiated, and that took about 18 months from start to finish. 18 months. That's how it takes. The property was off market, but I was negotiating and talking to the broker. I was following him up every three weeks and really being responsive. So when he gave me the financials, if you like, there was no financial. It was just a sheet of paper with some handwritten assumptions that they gave me, because the property was really mismanaged and they hardly had any financials. So it was really tough. And they had also 20% vacancy, 25% vacancy, in fact. So it was really tough to understand, where is the incomes that I can go and show to the lenders. But because we know the market, we could actually assume where we can take the property to. So because it was 25% vacant and it had 35% loss to lease, and if listeners don't know what loss to lease is pretty much the amount or the percentage, if you like, that the property has below market. So let's say you're collecting currently $100,000 a year, but only by taking the rent to market on full occupancy, you can take it to 150. That means that your loss to lease from 100 to 150 is $50,000 on a money amount point. So we had a big loss to lease over there. I think there were about 100 and something thousand, and we taking it to 300. So there was over 35% loss to lease, which gives a massive opportunity to add value. Within the negotiation, within the 18 months, suddenly they had a fire over there. One of the building had caught fire. So it's 11 fourplexes. on 3.5 hectares of land. So one had a fire in it, and that's kind of put spanners in the work on the sale, delayed it a little bit until they get themselves organized with the insurance. So what I did is I basically had told the broker, look, we kind of talked about the price, but now I have less units. I mean, one building is a total loss as far as as we are concerned and the seller is concerned. So what happened was that I then told the broker, you know what, go back to the sellers and tell them that I will take on, I'm still interested in the deal, I'll take the deal on, but I will also take the responsibility of demolishing this building. And I'm going to pay for the asbestos test, I'm going to pay for the city inspections and everything that needs to be done with that. And I got some quotes, I got some bids for demolishing it, and they came anything between 15 to 20,000. And I said, don't worry, I'm going to pay for it. And then we struck the price. We agreed on the price, which was good, which was $1.05 million. Now we tied up the deal. We've done the financials. We've done the due diligence. We done the environmental inspection, which we wanted to do, and everything else. At some point, we find out that the zoning that the community is sitting on is actually residential one, which means that you can only build houses on it. But we find out that from the city that they will grandfather it in. So the only reason that we should worry about from the city, according to the city, is if you got a situation that the whole of the community will be vacant, then after 6 months on that, it will not be allowed to operate as apartments. It will revert back to single family zoning. But that's like, it's hardly probable that it will happen because we're not going to have 45 vacant at one time and for that long at any time. So that was something that we had to dig in and explore, which was a learning curve. It's very important to check the zoning when you do due diligence on any apartment community. So anyhow, then I got the inspection done. And when we done the inspection, I asked them to check out the building 1000, which is the building that had the fire in it. And he told me that only 2 units are damaged. In fact, one of them was very severely damaged. The one above it was kind of damaged. And the 2 others in the building are not damaged at all. So I decided to start getting bids to renovate this building. And long story short, we decided to renovate the building. And the cost, if you like, of having those extra 4 apartments only cost me what it cost me to renovate it. So in effect, I'm getting it not for free, but I'm getting it for the cost of renovation, which is also a significantly value add. So that's it. We now gone through renovating all the vacant units. We had a couple of evictions, which didn't actually have to go to court. The people just left once they got the lawyer, the attorney putting the note on the door. They just left a mess. But we got the place tidied up and cleaned up for $300 in terms of just getting the garbage out. They left a lot of furniture, in opposed to needing to go to eviction that typically cost you $1,000 or $1,200 for the courts. So it was a good outcome. And now we really in the position now that we filled up all the vacant units, everything that became vacant. And now we were about to implement stage 2 of the repositioning plan, which is approaching the existing tenants. Some of them we did, but now approaching the majority of them to take the rent from $445, $450 to even maybe $550, just because it's way below market. But because of the situation of the coronavirus, we're going to hold on that for at least 30 to 60 days. Just to see what's going on. We're going to work with our residents, make sure they're comfortable, and we just have to sit tight and make sure that we kind of keep the tenant relationship good and keep the occupancy, because you don't want to be greedy and then you got people leaving or getting upset with you. And we want to be tenant retention and relationship is the key now. So we are focused on that. Once we pursue with increasing those rents, so getting to a benchmark which I set as the income that we receive on a monthly basis, then I will consider refinancing my money out and moving into agency debt, or maybe a credit union have good terms in terms of amortization. Typically 25 years, they will give you as high as that, in opposed to some community banks will only give you 20 years. But I will approach my current lender and see if they will be willing to perhaps put a supplemental or even refinance me into a higher loan to value, because we added a lot of value. The income is much higher, and the interest rates are significantly lower when I took the loan down in November last year. So I think I could make it work temporarily until I go to agency. I need to wait at least 12 months of ownership before we can go to agency anyway. So I'm just trying to position myself to pull some cash out, so I'm able to take down some more opportunities in the market, which will arise, within the current crisis that we are facing now with the coronavirus.
He's really given a lot of knowledge there. He's actually, at this point, told you exactly how to find a market and walked you through probably the entire process of him finding the deal that he's described here. I just want to start to unpack a little bit of what he said, because he has said so much. Let's just start with the amortization aspect of it. So what he's talking about is the amount of time at which your payments are spread out across. So 20 years would be your payments are spread out across 20 years, which makes your monthly payment a little bit higher than if you were to go 25 or 30 years. So that's what he's talking about there. And then as far as agency debt, he's talking about federally backed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. And then he's also said driving for dollars here. And driving for dollars just means driving around and looking at properties. And then as a result, you often make dollars, therefore drive for dollars. And then one last thing that I want to touch on is the direct mail versus the broker relationship. So he's finding a lot of his deals via direct mail, which is a slightly unconventional way, at least in commercial real estate, but he's having great success with it. And you saw he laid out his exact process, which is a huge value add on this podcast. But most people like myself go through brokers, where you have to develop a relationship with a person, but he's going around that by directly finding the owner's information. So now that that's been a little bit unpacked, I want to ask you a question about what advice you would give to a 20-year-old who's starting in real estate or business.
Thank you. I just want to give a couple of points to your comments. The first one is that with non-recourse debt, the main thing and the benefits is not just they can't come after you, because there is a bad boy carve-out clause that means that if you do something which you're not allowed to do within the rules, they can still come after you. The biggest benefit is that it goes off your balance sheet. So basically, it's not when you go and borrow more money and you want to get into the next deal, if you refinance into non-recourse, they don't look at that as a liability. It's just an asset that sits there and generates cash flow, but it's not a liability, which means it's not counting against you for servicing the new debt. So that's the biggest point of that. In terms of advice for 20 years old, I would like to say, if you're listening to this podcast, you already started well. And very important is to always keep learning, keep your education. I always read books for self-development, for selling and marketing, for real estate strategies and various things. So very important, always listening to podcasts and watching those videos. We got a lot of free videos on our channel. If you want to share the link after, you can come and see these apartment communities that I took a lot of walkthroughs, and while I was there walking through and dealing with contractors, there's a lot of information you can check out. So that's great. If you're starting up, get into coaching and education as soon as you can. Another point, avoid the shiny object syndrome. Stay focused on your strategy, stay focused on the relationship, stay focused on your market, and avoid the shiny object syndrome. If you decide that you're going to go and do multifamily, you need to be all in, get yourself educated, build those relationships like you're doing, Kyle. Just get in and do it and get into it. Because if you start thinking about selling things on Amazon now and starting to spend less time on multifamily and less focus on other things, then what will happen is that you're not going to invest enough time in multifamily.
Amazing advice. If you're a 20-year-old listening to what he's just said, you've gotten some serious gems. The last question I want to ask is, where can people find you online? Is that website the best place, or is there other place where people can find you?
Yeah, so I'm very active on Facebook, but I'm also active on YouTube. So, but if you go to the two websites I'm going to give now, the MFI Holding with a G.com, you can see the links to our YouTube channel, which please subscribe. You can keep up to date with videos that we're doing, and another we do also. And now we do with the MIHmastermind.com, MIHmastermind.com, which I co-facilitate with Marco Barbaro, Gino's brother. We have monthly free education sessions now, and you can find the link to that. Also, if you message me through either of the websites, so please visit mihmastermind.com, mfiholding.com. You can send me a message, and you can always join our group in the MIH Mastermind Multifamily Investment Group on Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all the knowledge you've given today, Hadar. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.